My name is Revana Sharfuddin. I'm a labor economist and research fellow at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. From the previous speaker, we already heard that AI is the buzzword, and I'm here to talk about AI and how I'm thinking about immediate way of focusing on how we navigate in the world of AI and the worker fear. Okay, this works. So currently, we look at what kind of policies we have around workers and AI and human capital investment and physical capital investment. So currently, when we think about workers' fears and workers' anxieties about their prospect and job, there are all of these really interesting ideas out there. But can we also think about a solution that's immediate, low-hanging fruit type of solution? A solution that might be sitting in the plain sight, just buried under very exciting thing, tax codes. So when we look at tax code, we see that through one big beautiful act, there is 100% immediate bonus depreciation provision for some equipments and selected buildings. But when we think about the same companies who are going to be able to get fully expensed for investing in AI tools, robots, but when they have to train a worker to work alongside that machine, they have to go through mazes of regulation before they can be considered for expensing that worker training. And Congress had done it before, and now we can think about, can we equalize the level playing field between AI and human workers in terms of expensing before we think about taxing AI? That would be immediate solution to grab onto before we understand how the disruption is taking place. So in our tax code, we have 6 bottlenecks that we have to deal with when we try to expense human capital investment. For example, if a company is trying to expense their worker training, they have to prove that the training does not qualify as minimum education requirement for that job. But we know that from new AI economy that what is considered as minimum education requirement itself is going to change because the jobs are going to change a lot. But if the business cannot qualify for it, they're not allowed to expense that training cost. Secondly, when we look at what kind of jobs a job training can be qualified for expensing, if there is a job that is considered as not in the current role, but in a future role, the businesses are not able to expense it. This is ridiculously silly. Just think about our research institutions where you have a research assistant and you think, oh, this research assistant can be promoted as a research fellow next year if this person knew some more Python, what have you. Maybe we can send this person to a coding boot camp. But because this training is for a future job, the business is not able to expense. So this is quite silly when we think about the AI economy. For the AI economy, we need to prepare people for future jobs. So this is quite silly that we have this in our tax code. And the third one is actually, I would consider one very disruptive for growth policy for small businesses. If somebody owns more than 5% of the business, they cannot expense their worker training, which is essentially unlocking all of our non-employer businesses, meaning I think this is 84% of our economy, or 30 million of the businesses are non-employer, and they're essentially locked out completely when they're trying to expense their own training because they own the business or their worker training. And the fourth is the non-discrimination testing, which is quite burdensome, especially for small businesses, because if the training programs is available and offered to all employees, but it happens to be only taken up by upper management or high-skilled workers, then the IRS is going to come after the organization and say, oh, this is a discriminatory policy, even though it was offered to everyone. So it's not by offering, but by take-up, which the businesses don't have so much power over. And we have 5,000 something cap on how much tax expensing can be done for training, which was set in 1986. So it's been a while, and we have a lot more inflation, and the cost of it's now a third. And now, in general, we don't have expensing parity between human capital and physical capital. So what's the solution? The solution is pretty simple. Targeted reform that the Congress can take. And this is pretty much getting rid of these 6 provisions. We need to be okay with businesses preparing their workforce and businesses preparing their workers for a future job, not for current jobs. So they should be able to train them for it. We should eliminate the minimum education requirement because minimum education requirement for the next jobs itself are going to change. And I'm just going to read through it quickly. Pretty much the 6 problem I identified, getting rid of them would be a great next step. And while we learn about how this disruption is actually happening and we have more federal data, we know now that we don't have federal data, for example, from BLS or census in terms of how AI is affecting workers. And this policy actually affects three very important things is that we know that human capital accumulation is the key thing that runs long-run economic growth. And we know that it's most effective when it's done by farm-led human capital training. And this is going to be very helpful for small businesses where AI can be a very equalizing factor, where they can have their own open source AI systems. And alternative can be worse. It can be more distortionary since that we don't know the lay of the land yet with the lack of data. So the last point I would make is that with this, we can achieve trifecta of policy wins. It's simple. It collapses regulation in a simple standard. It is neutral. The government is here not picking the winners and losers. It's responding to local labor demand because the businesses are going to be empowered to use it. And it's progressive because it helps small businesses and potentially low-skilled workers. So with that, here's my further information. You can look up my more work. My name is Revana Sharfuddin, and the QR code is for my policy brief if you're more interested. Thank you.